Today was my favorite day of the week. It was Sunday, the last shift I worked before my routine weekend began. I work as a private security guard for a company that is contracted by the government. It's not the worst job, but it's far from enlightening. I work a split shift. This wasn't always the case, but ever since we lost Lopez 2 weeks ago, we've been rotating to keep his shift covered. This place requires constant security detail, or so I'm told. So once a week, all the guards will take an overnight shift. Kinda sucks, but at least there's shift diff. And the lack of people here means I can use the bathroom in peace. Nights are weird here, as the amount of foot traffic is almost non-existent, if any. I've learned the hard way you better have something to do or you're in for a long night. During the day, we get your standard bunch of men and women, all dressed in high-end business attire, which I always found kinda weird seeing as we're in the freaking desert. Now occasionally, we do get an oddball visitor that seems out of place, but they're always accompanied by one or two of the suited men or women. That and we can never actually see them. They always have the visitors in a cage, and those cages are covered with a well-secured tarp. These visitors were always addressed as the package. Sometimes you could see the cages rattle, or sometimes noises would come out of them, and I mean god-awful sounds. During training, our boss Chuck always told us, don't acknowledge, don't question, and don't get in the way. We're here to keep out intruders and make sure bay door 51 stays closed at all times. I'm not sure why all the bay doors were numbered in Spanish, but so be it. The 51st bay door was never to be opened without government clearance. I've started to notice weird things happen here at night. I mean really weird things. Sometimes I hear strange noises when I take over the post. Sometimes the overhead lights go out followed by an eerie frequency. Once in a while there's this insufferable squeaking sound that comes from the 51st bay. It almost sounds like wet shoes on a linoleum floor. I go to look through underneath the door in an effort to catch a glimpse of something, anything, and it's always a fruitless effort. I'm starting to wonder if this was the reason that Lopez left. This kind of stuff could make one paranoid. It doesn't help that they don't tell us anything about what actually goes on here. If I were more creative or gullible, I'd say we house creatures of some kind. Now I know the rumors about the area, aliens. Yeah, considering where I work, I'm more inclined to believe this kind of facility is up to genetic experiments of some kind. I'm not a guessing man, and I only believe what I can see. So when the whole Area 51 talk starts up, I just ignore it, as I've been here for 3 years and I've yet to see proof. I am, however, starting to have my doubts, as there is definitely something happening here. I punched in around 9 tonight as I went to the security office to place my lunch in the fridge. I had leftover Mexican from last night when my girlfriend cooked dinner. Love me some homemade chalupas de carne asada. I passed James and asked, I thought Wilkinson had been scheduled for today's shift. James looked and shook his head and replied cynically, he was. James replied in a grim tone, rough Sunday, huh? I questioned, attempting to be sympathetic. Pretty shit, Anderson, but what do you expect when Chuck makes you work a whole double? I kept hearing this weird noise last night. It was like something was squeaking. Something... I can't describe it. Then today, one of those packages busted open right here in the lobby. Holy shit, what did it look like? I asked excitedly. Words cannot describe, James said, shaking his head. Come on, don't be a tease, I said, hassling James. James then squinted. Tall, lanky, lots of tentacles, a face only a mother could love. Yeesh, I said, a bit disgusted. Well, have fun with that nightmare fuel, James responded in a monotone voice. I've said too much already. The boss made me swear not to say anything. Look, man, you can trust me. I won't say a word to Chuck, I said, cheerfully, trying to take James's mind off the long and tiresome double he had just pulled. I got settled in for my night shift as Chuck walked James out the front door. I pulled out my tablet and started up the old Netflix. I had been binge-watching series while being forced to help cover these godforsaken night shifts. As I started up one of the series in my queue, I pulled out a few snacks from my desk drawer and began munching away. I pulled the same routine every night shift. I watched 3 episodes of something, do my rounds, enter the data, and repeat the process till lunch. Well, wouldn't you know it, by the time I get to my first set of rounds, things were off. I kept hearing this strange noise, just like James described, that weird, wet, sloppy, squeaking sound. It really did sound like wet shoes on a linoleum floor. It's the best way I can describe it personally. I kept peeking over my shoulder to see if something was following me, but nothing was ever there. I repeated the process, another 3 episodes, and then a secondary round. Once again, I heard the strange noise, but I also happened to notice a strange liquid seeping out from the bay door. I went to get a mop and bucket to clean it up, but by the time I returned, it was gone. I returned to my desk to input my data, still puzzled about what that was. It was around 2 a.m. when I decided to take my lunch and knock out that leftover Mexican food. My mouth watered as I thought about that juicy, flavorful carne asada. I heated up my lunch in the quiet, empty break room and then walked it back to my desk. The whole time I heard that wet, squishy noise following me. I didn't even waste my time looking over my shoulder. I just wanted to eat. I finished my lunch around 2:34 a.m. in the morning, and then I sat at my desk rubbing my gut. I ate too much, but damn was that good. Another 15 minutes or so went by, and it finally hit me. Like the bass drop in a dubstep song, or the cool breeze on the first night of fall. I let a massive fart loose, and I knew it was time right then and there to hit the bathroom. I grabbed a magazine on my phone, and I shuffled awkwardly to the men's room. I had a food baby that was ready to be birthed. Funny enough, it didn't matter which restroom I had chose, as nobody was here this late. But I decided just in case I'd keep to the status quo, and I entered into the men's room. I noticed once again that wet, squeaky sound had appeared from behind me. I could swear that something was following me. Man, I swear, this shift is really starting to get to me. I picked out the second stall closest to the end of the row. I don't like being cornered in case of emergencies, or if my stall just happens to be at a TP, there's always the option that I can reach under either side of the stall and try to find some. Most of the time I get lucky. I don't have to pull the old reach around, but you never know. Just as I got comfortable on the john is when I heard the bathroom door entrance creak open. I got goosebumps. When the door opened and that familiar squeaking noise started again. I sat in the bathroom stall nervously as the squeaky footsteps walked across to the end of the room. I was more scared now than I ever had been to let loose the massive BM I was fostering inside me. The sounds of feet bounced off the tile as something walked with purpose. I was hoping to remain hidden. Hoping was the right word, as I had gave birth to the remains of the double chalupa supreme I had consumed the night before. It caused a massive splash, one that could be heard as it echoed through the bathroom. The sound of a wet plop could be heard as the water responded to its disturbance. The footsteps began to hasten, and I nervously began to fart. Of course I did. It was a long one, too. It was the "I'm in here" signal, whoever was out there and had been looking for me. The squeak stopped promptly in front of my stall door. A sudden clacking rattle began as it tried to open my stall door. I could make out feet, but they sure didn't look human. The fear shot up my back and caused me to lose my concentration, which in turn made me chop that long, sad fart into a rippling batch of squeaky poots that were reminiscent of a cartoon tire losing air. No, I had to clean up and get my taser. I went to collect toilet paper whilst never taking my eyes off the stall door. Every second felt like an hour that passed in the stall. I couldn't get a good grip on the toilet paper, so I looked away for just a second. Once I had what I needed, I glanced back. The creature was gone. The feet were no longer planted outside my stall. I let out a big sigh and assume I imagined the whole thing, when suddenly a big glob of something wet and sticky plopped onto the back of my head and ear. "Sick!" I shouted. My immediate instinct was to look up and see where the slime had come from. Big mistake. There above me, a humanoid creature hovered on the side of the stall. The moment we locked eyes, it let out a shriek, which sounded extremely aggressive. This thing was gray, looked slimy, and had a large head with a row of 6 or 7 eyes. Multiple tentacles hung over the edge where it gripped and held itself in place. It resembled a cephalopod, maybe a squid. Its mouth beamed many rows of jagged fangs, and it smelled god-awful. I hurried and reached for my taser in my pants belt. The stall door began to rock as the creature dove headfirst onto me. It let out unbelievable noises and shrieks as it tried to overpower me. It used many of its tentacles to attempt to choke me and restrain me. I used my free hand to punch it while reaching for my taser. My vision started to blur. I felt lightheaded as this thing choked me. With my free hand, I poked it in 2 of the many eyes it had. The creature let out a massive shriek. Pain was a universal language, and I could clearly understand what I had done had worked. Its grip tightened around my neck as I went for another eye poke, this time 3 fingers. After jabbing it in most of its eyes, the squid-like humanoid flung itself back and rubbed its face with its many tentacles. I seized the moment to pull up my pants, grab my taser, and zap the ugly bastard. I pinned it down with my nightstick, and I used my other hand to tase it. It flailed and twisted as it released screech after screech. I was so scared I lost myself in the moment. I didn't remove my taser until it stopped moving. I killed it. I went back to the stall, I finished up, and then I went to call Chuck. I waited at the front door for him to arrive. He was followed by 2 other suits. They looked in the bathroom and then ordered Chuck to detain me. He gave me a sorrowful look and then cuffed me. He said, "Sorry, Anderson, I don't call the shots here at Area 51. I repeated the phrase as one of the suits stabbed me in the neck with some kind of needle. "Area 50, huh?" I lost consciousness, and I awoke handcuffed to a metal table in a small white room. There was a camera in the corner and a red metal door to my left. A few moments went by and a man in a suit entered the room. "Mr. Anderson, sorry to put you in this awkward spot, but we need to speak to you about what you saw last night. It's my understanding you electrocuted subject T3E87S. Yeah, sorry about that. He kinda tried to strangle me on the shitter," I replied, remorseful. "I understand, Mr. Anderson, but there's still the issue that the subject is deceased. You have seen what we keep here, so we need to clean up some loose ends. I've got a proposal for you that I'd highly recommend you consider." "Okay, I'm not going anywhere. Feel free to humor me." "You took down a very dangerous and lethal extraterrestrial, one that killed a whole team of our top scientists. Seeing this tells me you can handle yourself in stressful situations, which is something we look for here in this facility." "Wait, is this a job offer?" I asked, confused. "Well, yeah, more or less. That or we can detain you and you will live the rest of your days out in this facility as a prisoner and a traitor to your country." "Well, when you put it that way, when do I start?" "Great, we'll send someone in to debrief you and explain to you what you can and can't do continuing forward." "Okay, but I do have one last question. Is that thing the reason that Lopez is gone?" The man in the suit just stared at me. "That was 3 months ago. That's all the time I have for today, Journal. Next time I'll tell you about my first case and how I almost got abducted. XOXO, Agent Anderson." Well, it looks like you survived to the end of the video. I'd like to thank you for taking the time to listen to this story that I had written myself. If you did enjoy it, maybe consider leaving a like and subscribing. There's more spooky content just around the corner. And remember, dear viewers, you never know what goes bump in the night.